Live from Steinbach, Manitoba, it's your Not So Late Show with your host, Andrew Dyck.
Let's go in. All right. Oh, wow, that was a really warm welcome. You have no idea what to expect, and here you are with that warm welcome. There was one boo. I'm pretty sure I heard a boo. You're lucky the house lights are off, and I can't tell who that is. Welcome here. My name is Andrew Dyck, senior pastor at Stony Brook Fellowship during the day and the host of the Not So Late Show at night. And I am joined by Braden Plett and the Not So Late Show band. We're calling it the Not So Late Show because with an average age of about 58 here tonight, we don't want to keep anyone up past their bedtime. Being very considerate. Now, full disclosure before we dive in, I have never done anything like this before. And I know what you're thinking. It shows, we can tell. And one of the big challenges of preparing for a show like this was to practice my comedy when no one else was around. You have no laugh, no feedback. And so I was sharing this with my wife, and she said, "Why don't you practice your jokes for me?" Now, I didn't know what was the more daunting proposition, to try to get you all to laugh or try to do that one-on-one with my wife. And I said, "Dear, you've been telling me I'm not funny for our entire married lives. Why would I start listening to you now?" But I did. I went ahead and I practiced my jokes for her. She said they weren't too bad, and so if you don't like them, now you have somebody other than myself to blame. And so she's sitting right in the front here, and you can go say, why did you ever give those jokes the green light? Now, it's normal for late-night shows to talk about current events, and finally, that doesn't involve talking about COVID restrictions. Can I get an amen? What a relief. What a relief. But I found it hard then, what else are we supposed to talk about? Because this was a great shared human experience. For 2.5 years, we all endured COVID restrictions together, more or less in the same boat. And so, of course, when we all share something, it becomes a part of almost every single conversation. We had to talk about COVID all the time. And yet it got very emotional, very divisive. And so then sometimes it was very prudent to steer clear of talking about COVID. Got to the point where when I was going over to somebody else's house or we're hosting someone, then my wife would coach me on what I could and could not talk about during that evening. And she would say, stay away from all those controversial subjects and topics and buzzwords like COVID, restrictions, vaccines, the nature of freedom, Coke and Pepsi. It was all off the table. Can't talk about those things. And I was like, come on. What else are we supposed to talk about now? The weather? So it's really warming up out there, hey? Am I right? Finally, we're getting some nicer weather, and my family and I, we couldn't wait. And so I packed up my family, my 3 young boys and my wife and I. We went down to Arizona in mid to late April. We had a wonderful time. And because we are good, frugal Mennonites, we didn't fly direct from Winnipeg to Phoenix. We drove across the border to Grand Forks and flew from Grand Forks to Mesa on Allegiant Airlines. Anyone else here ever flown on Allegiant Airlines? Oh, there we go. That is too bad for you. I mean, we didn't have the greatest experience. There was some significant and unexplained delays on our way down, and so it kept our young kids up to all hours of the night. And there's one rule that you need to remember when you fly Allegiant Airlines. Everything costs something. I thought I was cheap. Have you seen Allegiant Airlines? You have to pay for your bag and your carry-on and your seat selection and the right to breathe the air on the airplane. Everything is up for grabs. It costs something. And so usually I'm pretty good at remembering this, except we had got on the plane after all these delays, and I'm tired, and my kids are very tired, and they say, will there be any snacks on the plane? I'm like, I'm sure. There's always a snack cart. We can get something. And then sure enough, the snack cart comes. I'm like, great, this will be good. The boys will enjoy a treat. We'll make an adventure out of this evening. And so they said, would you like anything? I said, yeah, I'll take a ginger ale, and my boys will share an apple juice. And so she puts that little tiny cup with ice in it on the tray. So far, so good. Cracks open the ginger ale and sets the whole can on the tray. And I'm thinking, wow, this doesn't seem like Allegiant at all. They let you keep the can? And then it hit me. I forgot the rule. And so there, I'm starting to panic and have this dumb look on my face. And she says, that will be $6. Everything costs something. And I'm kind of floundering, and I obviously don't know what's going on. And so I just double down on my stupidity. I'm like, American dollars? We fly from Grand Forks to Mesa. So I eventually gathered my pride. I also gathered my MasterCard, and I paid for the most expensive ginger ale of my God-given life up to this point. And then eventually we had a great rest of the trip. We had a wonderful time in Arizona, every day above 30 degrees. And then we were just swimming as a family, and my middle child, 7 years old, comes and lounges out in the sun and goes, is this what heaven is like? And I said, yes, son, this is exactly what heaven is like. But don't get too comfortable, because pretty soon we need to leave heaven and go back home. We were so excited for the trip that we wanted to go a little bit longer than usual. So we were gone for 2 Colorado Lows. Now, for everyone who's not part of our beautiful province of Manitoba, what a Colorado Low is a nefarious weather system that originates in the Colorado Rockies, pushes up through the prairies, and brings with it just an obscene amount of precipitation in the form of snow and sleet and rain, and it threatens to flood all of our basements at the same time. And it happened every single weekend in April, without fail. So it just becomes a very convenient way of marking time. We were gone for 2 Colorado Lows. It's wonderful. And then we got back here to Steinbach, where we live, and one of the first things our family did when we got home is we took part in Steinbach Pick Up and Walk. It's a very good event. It's where over 1,000 volunteers from the churches of Steinbach come together, pick up garbage around town, and we serve our community in this way. Now, you always learn something about your community when you pick up its garbage. And it's not always the part or the things you want to learn about your community. And so for me, by far, the number one piece of garbage I found on the ground was cigarette butts. I think largely because that's also what no one else wants to clean up. But what was really interesting is that the cigarette butts were the thickest right along the jogging path. Now, I'm no medical professional, and I've had to start a lot of conversations like that in the past 2.5 years, but I'm not a medical professional, but if you are smoking so much that you need to have a cigarette while you go for a run, then getting fresh air and exercise, that's not the problem. Okay? I think you've got bigger fish to fry before you worry about fresh air and exercise. You've got some life choices that need to change there. Reminds me of another time I was down in the States going to one of my favorite fast food restaurants, Hardee's. Oh, I love Hardee's, big, beautiful hamburgers. And then I was there with my brother-in-law, and we grab our food, we sit down. And you know, at restaurants, sometimes you people watch a little bit. Well, we were doing this as well. And there was a rather heavy-set gentleman that came in. And I don't want to judge or anything like that, but he comes in, he gets the biggest burger on the menu, and then he gets the super-sized fries, and then he takes that big cup. You know what he chooses to drink? A Diet Coke. And I'm thinking again, you know, I'm not a medical professional, but if you're going to eat that much meat and that much fried potato, I don't think the Diet Coke is the problem. I think there are other choices you need to look after first. And this just doesn't happen in the everyday life of us Joe Schmoes. We can look at someone like Jeff Bezos and see the same issue, right? Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, richest man in the world, I think. I have a hard time keeping up with all the billionaires. But he often uses his wealth for things that he's passionate about and is very generous. So, for example, when Seattle got a new hockey team, the Seattle Kraken, then Bezos bought the naming rights to the arena. But he didn't use it to name it Amazon.com Arena. Does anyone know what he did name it? Climate Pledge Arena. Oh, it's great. What a good cause to go towards. And yet that same Jeff Bezos, just a few months later, builds his own rocket ship to take a 9-minute joyride into space. And this just pollutes the upper atmosphere in the process. And I'm thinking, it's nice to have a naming right of an arena, but Jeff, I know you're watching, Jeff. But the arena? That's not the problem, okay? There's maybe the spaceship is the thing that you should change. I don't know. It's just me. one other story I'd like to tell about some of my travels. As a teen, I lived in Texas and had one opportunity with my worship band and my youth group to go play worship at a youth camp in West Texas. And one day when the worship team and we had some free time, we went into the town, this small West Texas town. I can't even remember its name. It was like I stepped back in time to the Wild West, tumbleweeds and everything. And we go there and we go to the town hall and had this supposedly famous statue or carving of a horned toad. This is what you do for fun in West Texas. You go see the horned toad. And so we did. We were like, yep, there it is. And but what was really interesting about the town hall was that it was gorgeous inside. It was marble floors and marble walls, marble pillars. It was absolutely spectacular. So we enjoy this, and then we turn around, and as we leave, we notice there's a sign right by the exit, and the sign says, and I kid you not, 100% true, "Do not spit on the floor." And I'm thinking, man, if you live in a community where it is somehow necessary to put in the one nice building in town, "Do not spit in the floor," I'm not sure the sign is the problem. I think there are, again, deep issues. I wanted to get some therapists coming in. I don't know if it's chewing tobacco. I was like, where am I right now that this sign exists? Though, Braden, what do you think I did once I saw that sign? If you just guess.
You really had to strongly consider spitting on the floor.
Exactly, right? So I not up to that point, it hadn't crossed my mind, strangely enough. But I thought, I'm not coming back here, so there it goes, and I'm out of town, out of Dodge, and I never came back. So come to think of it, maybe the sign actually was the problem in that instance. There we go. My theory is debunked. But enough about my travels, my stories. We're here together, EMC Festival 2022. And we're excited about the weekend, not just the show, but everything that's going to happen. We're going to kick off our theme tonight talking about what's next, healing for the past and vision for the future. We truly want to hold these things in balance. We want to acknowledge that the past number of years have been very difficult for all of us, personally and collectively. We want to acknowledge some of the hurt and maybe even the trauma that we've gone through, that sense of loss. Not just acknowledge it, but also ask and pray for God's healing in the midst of that. And while we do stay aware of what we have gone through, we also want to cast a very excited eye forward, knowing that God wants us to move and He has got big things in store. We want to be equally excited about the vision for the future. And so really the goal for this weekend is to have great conversations with one another. We're going to start that tonight by having a few guests come and share part of their stories and kick off these conversations. But we're going to have a lot of great things to talk about all weekend. And with that in mind, I want to share with you the top 10 things most likely to be overheard at Festival 2022. You want to hear them? All right. Here we go. I hope you guys laugh at some of these. Number 10, what's next? A Meadowslope for sure.
Oh, by oh.
You can go for a nap. I'll be me tomorrow at Conference Council. I'll be in the back, napping. Number 9, I should have just joined the live stream from home and stayed in my pajamas all weekend. We see you out there live stream. I guarantee you, Braden, there's at least one, if not many more people watching this in their pajamas right now.
100% agree.
Thank you. That's what I pay you for. Number 8, pretty sure I could be the next executive director. If Tim Dyck can do it for so long, anyone can.
That's a good one.
I know, isn't it?
Yeah.
I warned him too. I'm out of the will, probably, though, but we'll talk after him.
Yeah.
Number 7, on top 10 things most likely to be overheard. Are we allowed to knock zot at the festival? Best to ask forgiveness and not permission. So sorry, SES, if that gives anybody a bad idea.
They should have put a sign up.
They should have put a sign up. Do not knock zot on the floor. Is that? Oh, man. Okay. Number 6. I have to sing this one, but don't worry, no dancing, okay? Yeah. A person went to MCC and thought it was the MMC, but she was told by the MC that it was really EMC. Those acronyms, I've been here for almost 3 years, and I still have trouble with them all. Number 5, Run EMC? Is that rap group or the time the office staff ran a marathon?
Someone in the crowd has to know what this is.
I hope so. It's all for all the hip-hop lovers out there. Thank you.
100%.
Yep. Number 4, topmost thing likely to be overheard. I can't wait for the new Marvel movie, The Avengers, Infinity Conscientious Objector. As opposed to Infinity War, right?
Yeah, I got it.
I find as a dad that if I explain my jokes, they're funnier for everybody.
Oh, 100%.
Here we go. Number 3. Well, there's the EMC. Then there's the EMMC. What's the extra M for? Menchexai? More Weena? Martins? More bacon?
I couldn't tell you. I've been trying to think about it too.
You said you'd have some more M ideas. Are you all out of ideas?
Ideas? Money?
Money. That could be money. That's right. Those EMMCers, they look a little affluent from over there, don't they? I bet you that's what it is. Even more Mennonite. You can all decide whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, and we'll leave it at that. Number 2. There is tons of free food here. How hard would it be to smuggle a few Tupperware containers under my suit jacket and save some for later? That's a good idea. That's why you got to get the spacious suit jackets, right? Go to the MCC, buy one 10 times too large, and you got room.
Yeah.
All right, here it is, and I'm going to want a little drum roll or something at the end because they might not laugh at this one. Number 1, the most likely thing to be overheard at EMC Festival 2022. I heard the MBers aren't forcing their delegates to sit through a satirical late-night show. How hard is it to transfer membership? Thank you. I'm done with this now. That's good. Man, what is next? That is a really broad question, and it can lead to so many different types of answers. That's something that I found out as you enjoy this first and only installment of our video segment, Questionable Questions. Check it out. Hi, I'm Andrew Dyck here with the Not So Late Show, and I'm in downtown Steinbach to ask people off the street, with all the craziness of the past couple years, what's next? Now, life has looked a little different the past couple years, and it's been hard to predict what's coming up, but if we look to the future, what do you think is going to happen next now that a lot of COVID restrictions are done with?
I'm hoping we're just going to be more getting together. I would like to see more sports stuff with my kids, doing stuff in the community. So I'm thinking that volunteering and being out in the community is going to be a lot more important.
I think there's going to be a lot of need for community for people. I think even our introverts realized in the last couple of years that being alone isn't a good thing. And so being with people, being in a community in some form or fashion is going to be a big part of what's next. And then really we spouted mental health and we need to care for it. And I think we're really going to see the need for that moving forward too.
So with all the COVID restrictions looking like they're in the past, what do you think is coming up next?
No, something new will show up, I think.
Maybe monkeypox?
Monkeypox or monkey turds.
Things are turning around and getting more positive. Really hoping that we don't get a plague of frogs next because we've had floods and we've had COVID. So, you never know. But I think too, things are turning around and people are getting together and looking for good things in fall.
I kind of think for me, life is returning to normal. I was happy with everything the government did to try to protect us, and I feel perfectly safe and confident going forward in the measures that I've taken when it comes to COVID. I think for me, life is going to go back to normal. Road trips, going to see my favorite sports teams, going out to restaurants with my family and friends. I think it's going to be a great 2022 and beyond.
Now, the world has also been in a bit of turmoil. I mean, it's happened everywhere, and the prices are going sky high, and we have different countries dealing with war. Sometimes I get pretty pessimistic. What about you? What do you think is coming up next when we look at the big picture?
I think it gives an opportunity for the church to really step in to the needs that are around and to be salt and light like we're called to be. And so I'm excited about the opportunities that the church has going forward.
Sounds good. We've also had a lot of crazy weather stuff happen. I mean, we went from drought to flood, and what do you think's coming up next there? Should we be worried about anything?
I try to think about an hour at a time. So I'm not building an ark. I'm going to keep my rubber boots at home for now. I'm good.
I like that, an hour at a time. Awesome. And with all the crazy weather that we've been having, we went from a drought to all this rain. What's coming up next for us that way?
Snow again.
Well, one thing we've learned is it's really hard to know what comes in the future. Think about it. What about the Evangelical Mennonite Conference? What do you think is next for us as a group?
I'm hoping more churches get planted. I'm hoping there's a renewal, that people who maybe were on the fence about God have made strong convictions now and feeling like they really need to live out their faith.
So when you say your favorite sports teams, I'm assuming you mean the Toronto Blue Jays, right?
I cheer for a bird of a different color, actually. I'm more of a St. Louis Cardinals fan, and there's a road trip in the works right now to head down to the Midwest to check out my favorite ball team.
This interview's over. Wow, that's good stuff. Lots of good answers. Probably a few faces you recognized. But this has been a really busy week for me, trying to get ready for the Not So Late show amongst all my other duties. So I'm running a little bit behind on what I would normally do on Friday, like check some emails and return some messages, write some thank you notes. Is it okay if I write some of my thank you notes for you all right now? Would that be okay? All right. Let's see here. All right. Sophia, do you think you could give me some thank you note music? Thank you, month of June, for finally melting all the snow.
We need to praise the Lord in there.
Amen.
Amen.
That one was too true to be funny.
Yeah.
Yep. This movie's over a bit. Thank you, Winnipeg Jets, for freeing up my playoff time to spiritually prepare for EMC Festival this weekend. It was kind of them to miss the playoffs, really, and it was very, very generous.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it.
Thank you, Dutch Blitz, for being the closest pacifists will ever get to armed conflict. You ever been hurt playing Dutch Blitz, Braden?
A few times, some jammed fingers, some open wounds. Nothing too serious.
There's nothing too out of ordinary.
No, I didn't have to miss any days. I could go right back into it.
You didn't. My wife has had some injuries too, actually. Yeah, but I have never had any injuries because I never played Dutch Blitz. So that's a pro tip for you all. Thank you, inflation, for the difficult choice of whether to send my 3 children to college or fill up my tank this week. I got 3 kids. Community college is pretty good, right?
Yeah. Good options. Good options from there.
Do not recommend. Okay, well then I'll just bike everywhere. Thank you, Steinbach, for being the most generous community in Canada, unless you're a restaurant server. You hear that sound, Braden? That's the sound of conviction right there.
Too true.
I know, it's going to be good to be a restaurant server tomorrow, I think. It's going to be better. It's going to be better. Thank you, Hold Message, for 2 hours of reminders of just how important my call is to you. I have nothing really to add. What about you? No. Should we keep going? Okay. Thank you, Raisin Cookies, for making other cookies feel better about themselves.
Somebody had to take the fall.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the worst is when you think it's a chocolate chip cookie and then it ends up being a raisin cookie. Like that's bad. That's a trick life plays on you.
That should be the 11th commandment.
Thou shalt not ever make raisin cookies. Okay. Thank you, Queen Elizabeth, for celebrating so many jubilees. Silver, ruby, gold, diamond, sapphire, and now platinum. I hope you're still reigning for the next one, which I presume will be the crude oil jubilee. Because what's more expensive than platinum, right? There we go. That's it for my thank you notes. I hope you guys, thank you. I want you to stick around because on the other side of these messages, we're going to be back with Sid, Reimer, and Lucas Aragon. Give it up for Braden Plett and the Not So Late Show Band.
3, 4.
Why Afghan Christians?
They are a minority group that are doubly vulnerable.
No other organizations, no one else will advocate for vulnerable Afghan Christians.
We're working together with MCC and with the Mennonite churches, trying to galvanize as many churches as possible to come together and sponsor one Afghan Christian unit.
What is your favorite thing about SES?
One of my favorite things about SES is just coming here and just having so much great people. Because you're so tight, you can, outside of school, do so many more things.
I'd say the community, because like it's so small, you kind of just are best friends with everyone, no matter what grade you're in, as well as the teachers. The teachers are amazing.
I would say my highlight of SES would definitely be the community and just like getting to know people, and having a smaller class is really, really nice just to like get to know people better. And
What's your favorite thing about SES?
The tight-knit community where you know everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nicaragua at our food market. We have chosen toasted corn tortilla to serve with refried red beans, crumbled cheese. You can put hot sauce on or you don't need to.
Feijoada do Brasil.
From Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, the most traditional food, which is dal or lentils.
It'd be a pleasure to show you and just come and sample.
All right. Welcome back to our show. Our first guests tonight run the coffee shop ministry in downtown Winnipeg. Please welcome Sid Reimer and Lucas Aragon. All right, welcome here, Sid. Welcome here, Lucas. You guys can go ahead and pick up those mics next to you there. Then we'll be able to hear everything you have to say this evening. And you know what? I have to admit, the only thing I really know about you both is your names. And so would you just take the opportunity here to introduce yourselves to the rest of our audience?
Lucas, you want to go first? All right, my name is Sid Reimer. I'm from Winnipeg, and growing up in Manitoba in various locations, including Steinbach, which we enjoyed very much, was part of our married life. And we're rather pleased to be able to share with you our experiences on the streets of downtown Winnipeg, and chatting and visiting and serving coffee and Danish with the people that are homeless and living on the street. Go ahead.
Oh, yes, my name is Lucas, and how did I meet Sid? It just happened about 3 years ago now, okay, 2019. It just so happened that I came here over on Pembina, you know, and like so many people I met throughout all this mission. So I also happened to meet Sid, and it was a very good experience because, you know, we come this far. All these 3 years we've been in contact. We've been getting along quite well, you know, in such a way that, yeah, we are doing, I would say, really good, okay? Not 100%, but at least we are trying. It's just a show. How to say? Just a way to show people, what this thing is. When we walk with Jesus, about serving, helping, being there for the very destitute, for the very needy, the hungry, the poor.
That's perfect.
Sick. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas and Sid, for that. And so you've already given us a bit of information, but for all of us here too, because I've only given the name of what you do, the coffee shop, would you be able to describe a little more detail what exactly it is that you all do downtown Winnipeg?
Maybe at this point we could give the audience a chance to look at what our coffee shop looks like. And I understand that there's stagehands that can bring us the table.
That's right. We've got a table we can bring out too. So as they do that, can you just help describe?
Sure. The function is simply this. We locate a supplier of coffee, of danishes, and related kind of food. We make arrangements with grocery stores, and we have an arrangement with Robin's Donuts to provide the coffee at a reduced price, which we're very grateful for. Our system is quite unpretentious. As you can tell, you might say that's back to the future in many ways. It's straightforward. It's not meant to be glitzy. It's meant to do one job primarily, and that is let the people on the sidewalk know there is free coffee, and they are welcome to come again and again as long as our supplies last. And they do. And we keep handing out danishes and coffee to the extent required. We start at 11 o'clock on the corner of Portage and Carleton, and by 12:30 we've run out of supplies. And that means that's 120 cups of coffee and lemonade, and probably about 100 pieces of Danish as well. And then they keep coming back for more. Unfortunately, we're out, we're dry. And it's been the opportunity for many of them, many of the folks to have a place to come and socialize and not be threatened during the moment that they're with us. And at the same time, Lucas and I take turns praying for people who come and ask for individual prayer. And we do that right then and there. We don't hesitate. The serving of the coffee takes a second or two to look after this, and then we move on.
Great. No, it's really good. And how does it happen every day, or just a few days of the week, or how often do you run the coffee shop?
We run coffee shop twice a week, weather permitting, on Tuesdays and Fridays. So we had a coffee shop this morning at 11 o'clock, and things went very well. We're not always fortunate to have such a wonderful time with the people there. It's always interesting to see new developments and new incidences of abuse or simply incoherence happening right in front of our eyes, which include everything from couples fighting it out in front of us, or as we experienced and saw last fall, we had a murder that took place right in front of us, and it quite frankly shocked us beyond the point of allowing us even to react in any way. But there's always stuff happening, and Lucas is very familiar with all of this, and he does give me caution periodically. Don't get involved. Leave that one alone.
Perfect. Well, Sid, we'll keep the next question with you as well, just because it ties in so well with what you've explained so far. How did you come up with this idea? Was it something you saw modeled somewhere, or was it just kind of an aha moment for you? Would you share that with us?
The aha moment happened in Mexico, where Gladys and I have been involved in setting up a school, and it's located on the garbage dump. For those of you familiar with the Brady landfill site, that's what this would be. And on the dump itself is a community of people living there in shacks and hovels and so on. And once a week, we put together a small Meals on Wheels effort and take it up to the people picking up the garbage and picking through the garbage, I should say, and serve a meal there to those folks. So when we came back and were kind of quarantined by COVID, there's our reference to COVID.
glad you could fit it in.
Yeah. I became restless and felt I needed to do something, but nothing was really coming to mind except this lunch service. And then I began to investigate what would it take to do a little coffee shop concept in downtown Winnipeg. And it took a while. It took me almost a year after some wise counsel from Lucas. He made it very clear, saying, listen, this is a good idea. If you're going to go with it, then go with it. Be committed to it, but don't do it and then leave it.
Mm-hmm. So that commitment to be there, to be present downtown on a regular basis and invest there, really. Is that what you're talking about, hey?
Right. One of the things that's happening a year and a half later from the first time we were out there is that I'm starting to recognize faces. I'm putting names to faces. And that by itself is quite a challenge for a man my age.
It's a challenge for me too, but I have no excuses at all. So.
But Lucas keeps pointing to people walking by or people showing up at the table and says, that's my friend, that's my friend. And another one walks by and says, yeah, I've known that one for 7 years and 1/2, and so on. So when we sat down here today, I said, Lucas, today I'm going to compete with you. I can point to quite a few people and say, I know that person, I know that person. There's Dave Craker and there's Agnes Craker, and I finally was able to get even with him.
He's in your comfort zone now as opposed to the other way around, and that's good, yeah. But it's I appreciate you sharing how that all happened, Sid, and you've already mentioned Lucas and his name a few times. And so, Lucas, we're really glad that you're here. You're clearly an integral part of what's going on with this ministry. So my question for you is, how did you meet Sid, and how did you become involved in helping serve and giving him this wise counsel? How did you guys get together to do this ministry?
It takes for somebody to be humble like him, you know. I admire him because he's one of so many, if I could just say thousands of them that have come to me asking me for advice, you know, what is it that I'm doing? Why did I do it? But, you know, Sid did not just ask me, but he actually put his word into action. You know, he has something in mind, and he actually did it, you know, and I said, wow, that's a guy. You know, I told him, like he just said it, right? If you start something, you gotta make sure that you gotta keep going, because it's not just about 1 day or two, like some people think about going to church is just 2 hours on Sundays. No, it's something that we have to do it. Like people right now, they see me going with Sid, you know, they see me going to church. The people that go to church, they think that I'm just going to church. People that see me with Sid, they think that I'm just going there with Sid. But no, they see me all over the place. You know, I'm on the streets, I'm in the library, I go over there by Dolorama, I go to the North End, you know, and so, you know, again, right, how is it that I met him? That's how I met him. He came to me, and of course, like many of them asked me, I thought he was joking, you know, but with time I said, oh, maybe he is actually real, you know, because, yeah, somebody finally told me I was standing by Dolorama, and then they told me, you know, there's somebody looking for you. And when they told me, I knew it was him. You know, I said, well, they want you to go and help keep coffee. You know, he already told me that he was going to do it. And then I said, wow. So I went, and yeah, sure enough, he was right there in front of Porridge Place. That was just the beginning of last year. I would say probably around February or January. I don't know exactly when it was, but that's when I first came there to help him, and I was surprised. And since then, I tried my best to be there, and so far I know I missed one day this year, and when I missed one day last year, but last year I had an excuse. This year I did not have an excuse because I just forgot what day I was on.
There you go.
And I like to be honest,
You know what? Everybody in this room has forgot something important at least one time. So you're in very good company. And even all our pajama pant wearing friends on the live stream have forgot something too. It's awesome. So you're you're involved in doing this ministry together. You're a partner with Sid, which is great. And what do you enjoy about serving at the coffee shop ministry? What do you get out of that?
The thing that I enjoy the most is that you have to interact with people. Because 20 years ago, I used to be a very shy person. And that's what led me into a lot of alcohol and smoking. I was actually away from people. I was kind of scared of them, maybe. I didn't have nothing to say. But now I do have a lot to say. I have a lot to talk about. God has given me, like David said, right? He's given me a new song to sing. In a way, he's put a lot of words in my mouth. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding. I don't just sit there and look at people. I listen to what they say, and then I start going. Sometimes, I don't even know people, and everything I know, I jump into and it's like I join the conversation. It's like, yeah, I got something to say. And it's like they like what I had to say, and it's like some people, they don't want to know about God. But that's the main reason why I started a conversation. Because little by little, I introduce him to Jesus. Nothing I know, I go with Jesus. And then it's like everybody's talking about Jesus, And that's what I like about it. I do it there, I do it anywhere.
Right, so you don't have to wait for the coffee shop in order to share
Oh no!
with
By
what
the
God
time
has done for you.
last year, I used to do it before I came to the coffee shop. I was already standing by the Rama. I used to stand on the corner, but now I do it after the coffee shop. He leaves. I go by the Rama, then I go to the library, and then I come back to the Rama, or then I go to another corner. I'm still doing it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I love that. I love a new song to sing. I think that's such a rich reference there too. Amen to that. I think you've both touched on this already too, but the coffee shop is about more than just handing out food and coffee. So Sid, if you look at missionally, what is the end goal of this ministry? What are you hoping to not only do you see now, but hoping to continue to see by doing this ministry?
There's so much trauma happening in the culture of the people that come and visit us. We hope that, and we believe we're actually accomplishing this, that for the moments that they stand and wait in line for a cup of coffee, they are finding a moment of peace in their life. It's for many of these folks, that's hard for them to recognize and to experience. Many of them come with all kinds of trauma that they've gone through, and they're going to experience it again and again. But for the moment that they're having to stand in line and wait for a cup of coffee, it's quiet. Life is peaceful. And then when they sit down on the bench next to us to enjoy the coffee and the Danish, it's also quiet. And they're able to socialize with people of their own tribe, which is incidentally quite prominent in that environment. They group up in those kind of circles, just like the EMMCs do and the EMCs do.
Yep. Denominations, tribes, it's all.
Yes,
yeah?
it's all one, or the same thing. So we hope that there's a moment of peace for them and a desire to come again. And of course, like I said before, many folks, it's probably 2-3 times every session that we're out there, that somebody comes over and asks, almost pleads for us to give them a moment of prayer. They find that, or they expect that someone like Lucas, if he can pray for them, and if he can have a word of assurance for them, then certainly God can give them some kind of peace as well.
And I like that thread of peace, like those moments of peace and those prayers of peace. That's such a powerful gift that ultimately God can give them, and you can just be a part of that, which is a wonderful thing to do. So either of you can answer this next question, if you have a specific story in mind, or just in general terms. How have you seen God at work through the coffee shop ministry? Again, you've shared some of that. Is there anything else you'd like to add about things that you've seen God do?
I think I'll ask Lucas to respond to that. I think I've basically said my viewpoint on that it's a place of peace and contentment, but I'll ask him to give his thoughts on that as well. Lucas comes from an environment of street life. He's been a street person for almost 8 years. He can correct me on that. So he brings an entirely different perspective, and which is what I was hoping would happen. Lucas, you want to respond?
I'm going to be very, very straightforward in this case, because, a lot of people, they don't understand God's ways. Jesus says, right, when somebody, does you wrong, even when somebody smites you in the face, he says, one cheek, just turn the other. I don't like to beat around the bush, but in this case, it just happened about 3 weeks ago, I think it was, and see, this is my witness. It might sound very bad, but sometimes we are caught in a position where we really want to use our hands. We want to claim victory on our own side, but then, Jesus says, just turn the other cheek. So it just so happened that this lady, she came in there, with an attitude that nobody could stop her, right? And like me, even though I'm a man of God, they call me a man of God, even though I come on a mission with my Bible in my hand, still sometimes I feel like I want to take it into my own hands, But then the moment, it's like I was about to snap, just like many times, because it's not the first time, so many times that big guys come to me, but I tell my friends, you have to be very careful. That verse sticks to my mind. All of these kind of verses, they are there for a reason. She would not move. I told her, please, there are people waiting, we need to serve. But she would not move. All of a sudden, she just went flying right there. And I said, that's God at work. Mm-hmm. People might take me wrong, but that is God at work. Because you know what? I mean, whether we like it or not, we have to make sure that God sends a message and we have to listen to his message. Mm-hmm. Because if we fall into a kind of a stubborn kind of attitude, then you know what? We're not going to get too far. Mm-hmm. Something bad is coming our way. And I've seen this happen. I use it because he is my witness, but I've seen it in so many places, so many times. Okay? That's why he says, you know what? We have to make sure we know what we do, we know what we say, even how do we treat other people. Not just verbally, but even with our hands. Yeah, it's very dangerous. Do not provoke the Lord to anger.
Well, I love it. You're just sitting here quoting scripture at me, and I love it. Because that's it, right? Like, not just to know the word and to carry it with you, but to be willing to put that into action even when it's inconvenient and sometimes a bit scary too. So I appreciate that. And then you've mentioned this whole thread, this importance of authenticity, not only in how you could discern that Sid is someone that could be an advocate for you because he followed this through, but even in your own walk, how just knowing that verse isn't enough, but putting it into action. So I'll just ask you one more question, going a bit off script. I didn't prepare you for this one too, but your whole story has had parts of healing and has also had a lot of courageous vision for what is in the future. So if you could encourage our audience here, what would you say to them as we look forward? Like, are there ways that we could get involved with the coffee shop in particular? Are there ways that we could take the spirit of what you do and apply it in our own setting? What would you challenge or leave us with here tonight?
Go ahead.
You know, the Lord says, do your part, He's going to do the rest. You know, sometimes we keep on asking and asking, but then it's right there, right? Because people offer me money. They offer me a place. They offer me things. And they say, what do you want me to bring? What do you want me to give you? But then I say, you know what? That is a temptation for me, because I could just ask hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. But then at the end, what am I going to do with it? You know, and the other thing too. You know, men will always fail. It doesn't matter what they promise. It doesn't matter how they promise it. Still. That's why he says, you know, you put your trust in God and everything's going to be fine. And that's the way I go. I just put my trust in God. Mm-hmm. Now, like I said, right? Yes, you know, we want a revival. We want us to stand up for Jesus, because these are the days, and God is not joking. I mean, trouble is heading this way. Danger. You know, we hear. It's happening right in our own community, you know, our own neighbors. People are getting hurt. Our own children, girls, you know, they are disappearing. I mean, what is going on? People wonder, but it's all in the Bible, you know. It is happening everywhere. And this is why God calls us to be sober all the time, you know, because your enemy is out there and is preying on your little ones, you know. They're very vulnerable. So yes, we have to stand up for Jesus, and it's not just a thing. 2 hours in church, not just on Sundays, you know, and it's not just with my friends, with anybody, everywhere, all the time. Because, you know, Solomon says, you have to keep on planting these seeds, you know, because he says you never know which ones are going to grow. He says never stop planting your seeds, right? Yep.
I'll just add a little bit to that from a practical point of view. If you are looking for, you or your church is looking for some type of outreach venture, this is a low-cost type of thing to do. The key is that if you're going to do it, then give yourself a sense of commitment to stay with it for at least 2 years. It just needs that much time to mature and to build the bridges and make the connections and all those things that are important in doing friendship ministry. But it's a great opportunity for youth groups. Our church youth group put together a whole ream of hygiene, personal hygiene packages together and handed them out at our coffee shop table. Our Bible study group put together a sandwich basket for 80 people, and we distributed those at our table. Those are small little projects that can happen without a great deal of expense, and probably the enjoyment of the whole effort is more in the preparation of it than in the delivery of it, although to see a mother of 3 receive a package of sandwiches and or personal hygiene kit, my, that face just glows, and it's well worth the effort to do that. You're going to spend about $250 to set up a state-of-the-art type of table. By the way, that does not include the 2 Cambros of coffee, which are roughly around $100 a piece. But that's your investment, and then in addition to that, it's time. If I'm getting a little personal and I'm climbing fences here. Forgive me if you feel this is out of place. If you're wondering how to reach out to the indigenous community and actually create a ministry in it. I invite you to try this kind of thing for a period of time where they are the recipients. And you'll learn a lot about these kind and gentle folks. And you'll learn that when they talk about a God different than ours, that's not the end of a conversation. That just may be the start of a conversation. And we need to learn how to have that conversation. That's important. And I think that's one of the opportunities of a little venture like this can create for us.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you both, Sid and Lucas, for not only being here, not only sharing some of your stories, but just the rich reminders of who God is and what He's called us to do. Given us a lot to think about, kicked off these conversations really well. So thank you for being here. Thank you for showing us your table, and remember to take that with you when you go. We don't want to keep it here for too long. And we're going to have another quick commercial break. I want you all to stick around because there is literally nowhere else to go. And on the other side of this break, we are going to hear from Gary and Andrea. So stay tuned. I can help you with this one.
Hi, I'm Phil. I work with Open Schools Worldwide. Open Schools Worldwide is an educational intervention where we aim to provide literacy, numeracy, basic life skills, and the good news of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Are you ready to take the next step? At Steinbach Bible College, your enrollment is about so much more than an education. Here, you'll join a family of students and professors who are close-knit, caring, and constantly growing. Come to chase your big questions, to dive into deep discussions, to search for God's voice, to take your leap of faith. We're inviting you to live in Christ-centered community with like-minded young people, to grow a biblical foundation from passionate staff who truly care about you, to learn and experience life together in a way that goes far beyond a classroom education. You might be surprised by the people you meet and experiences you find at Steinbach Bible College. Your mission starts here. Are you ready?
Come and join us for an evening of worship and prayer, led by Island Breeze, a worship team from Steinbach.
All right, we are back again. Our next guests, we have Gary, who's currently working at the Mennonite Heritage Village, and Andrea, who is working with families on assignment. And really what we're asking them to share here is their years and experience working in Asia. So why don't you welcome Gary and Andrea. Having a hard time with my suit button. I don't even know what the etiquette is, on or off. Is it just the top one on? Do you know, Gary?
Oh, I don't wear a tie even, so no, you're the wrong guy.
Then I'm in okay company here. Okay, I think just unbuttoned while seated will do good for the rest of the show. That's awesome. Well, welcome here. We've given you your names and some very brief information of what you might be up to now. But again, could you just fill in the blanks for everyone that's watching the show? Let us know who you are.
Yeah, we're Gary and Andrea. We grew up here in Steinbach, and we spent 18 years overseas in Central Asia, some years in Uzbekistan, and then over in Northwest China for 10 years. We have 3 kids, and we came back to Canada 4 years ago, which we'll talk more about that later.
It's already been 4 years, eh? It's almost hard to believe.
It is.
Awesome. So how did you arrive in China, where you were working with the Uyghur people? And just describe a bit of what your ministry was like while you were there.
Yeah, we were in Uzbekistan, like Andrea said before that, and we had to leave that country. And it's basically just across the mountains, a little further east. And the Uyghurs are very much the same as the Uzbeks. The language and culture is about 80% the same. But there's over 15 million, 20 million of them, and very few results there, outreach and such. So we just felt, this is the place where we should go next and where we're needed. And it was just, we were able to plug in right away. So we did do language learning, learned Mandarin for a couple of years, learned Uyghur for a couple of years at the university. But the whole time we just enjoyed it. We were there for 10 years, pretty much. And never felt like we were restricted. We're in a communist country, but we never felt our faith was restricted. You could always pray, you could always worship, you could always talk about spiritual things with people. And I even took my daughter to the hospital every week and in the cancer ward, and she was like 2 years old. That's basically where she learned to walk, was in the hallways of the cancer ward. Everyone loved her, and we would go and pray around for the different patients. And one time the head nurse was even like, "You can't be here." And then right away, the patients come out of the rooms and like, "No, he stays, that girl stays." And that was awesome. So yeah, it was just wonderful in that way, just living there and ministering.
Now, just to clarify for me, as well as others, you had to learn Mandarin as well as Uyghur. What's the situation like as far as, are the Uyghur people a minority in their native homeland? Like, what are the demographics like where you were working?
Yeah, a number of decades ago, they would have been the majority in that area. And then starting in the 60s, China started moving a Han Chinese population into that area, and so they became, instead of 80% of the population, they became 20%, at least of the city that we were living in. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And it helps frame a little bit of what you're going to share with us too. Now, we had the opportunity to talk ahead of time, and and that was a wonderful conversation for me to be a part of, but it was heavy. And we're going to share some things that are not easy to talk about. And some of what kind of was maybe the match that lit a fire that really changed your experience when you were working there happened in 2009. So there was an event that year that you witnessed, which seems to be that huge turning point in the relationship between the Uyghur people and the majority Han Chinese. Can you describe what you witnessed that time?
Sure, it was July 5th, and it became the 9/11 for that region. It was Sunday afternoon. Every Sunday afternoon we went and spent it with our teammates who were also sent from EMC. We had FOSPA and board games. It was a great time. But it was about 4 in the afternoon, and we started to hear explosions, and we started to see smoke. And they were on the 16th floor of a downtown apartment, and we could see this thing just spreading across the city. And then we saw the military come in, and some friends came over and said, "You're not walking home." It became a riot that spread across the country and across the whole downtown. Till recently, we called it a riot, but last year we met with some Uyghurs online, and they say, "No, we call it a massacre." 8,000, we knew at that time, in the days after, 8,000 young men disappeared. And one of the women we talked with said the thing she remembers is the swishing of the water that washed away the blood through the night.
And that violence, the riot or the massacre, that was ethnically motivated. There was lines drawn between the Uyghur and the Han Chinese. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. It was. It was meant to. What we understood was it was meant to be a peaceful protest that became violent, and it spread up. Right. We would have walked right through it if we had gone home that night. So we lost. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. But what happened is that it became a reason for the dismantling of the culture and the communities. So many of the traditional neighborhoods were destroyed in the weeks and months after that. People were moved into high-rise buildings and separated from their communities.
Right. The systemic racism just took another turn after that.
Right. So maybe there's a sense of it was always kind of boiling underneath, and maybe this brought it to the top. And so a lot of what you really want to share looks at this turning point and then carries it forward. So what was the situation like after the 2009 riot or massacre up until you were forced to leave where you were working and living?
Yeah, there was a lot of change. All of a sudden, for the Uyghurs who are Muslim, beards became illegal, and so all of a sudden it was probably another reason for them to take your beard too.
I would not do well. I would look like I'm 16 years old without a beard. So no, but for those where it's tied to religion, that's an even bigger deal, right?
Yep, that's right. Okay. How about other things? What did you see?
I mean, there was just a different kind of tension. And then in 2016, we really saw the change. There were suddenly barriers everywhere. You could only walk this way. So what used to be a 5-minute walk to get milk was a 20-minute walk past 12 policemen. There were new police stations on every intersection of almost every city. So it was just, you could just feel the surveillance just notching up dramatically in about 2017.
Right, and then the Qurans became illegal, and even then Uyghur language books became illegal to be sold in the local bookstores. All of a sudden, couches, weren't the couches kind of...
Oh, in some places it was illegal to have a couch. No, it was illegal not to have a couch. They had to buy a couch or they were taken away.
But this is a very comfortable couch, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I do like couches.
Good.
Yeah.
But in that instance, it was almost like these things were clearly targeted at a different ethnic group where it wouldn't affect one group, but it would dramatically affect some of the the religious and cultural sensitivities of another people.
Yeah.
And so this did it just kind of continue in a straight line, or did you get the sense that it continued to increase almost dramatically at some point?
Yeah, it increased. It was very, very methodical, and we would say then at some point, definitely looking back now, at some point it did become a genocide, and it was just hard to see the loss of culture and then the loss of people. There was these they called them re-education schools, but they were more like camps. And they were taking people away to these camps more and more. And we actually had one built up just a 10-minute drive from our house. And so it was hard to see these people just disappearing to these camps. And I had a compost business. So I worked with low-income farmers, had a sales agent who was a Uyghur. And every year we'd go out into the different villages in the region selling our compost and checking on the farmers. And in that 2017 era, then we were driving out in the spring, and it was just like, we both looked at each other and we're like, where are the people? And do you see what I'm seeing? And he nodded and he's like, yep, they're gone. It's just the streets were just getting really empty.
So like in spring of 2017, when we first heard of it, it was what we heard and understood was that police were given a quota of arresting 6 people a day. And if they didn't arrest someone, 6 people in a day, they would be taken away themselves. So it was just, this gradual, what are all the things you could arrest a Uyghur for doing? Is it a short skirt? Is it a long beard? Is it, not smoking? Gary's employee was told he should start smoking again because otherwise he looked too Muslim. So it could be almost anything. And the young men would start smoking and putting that on their social media pictures and stuff, drinking to kind of prove that they weren't terrorists and not be taken away. And there were 2 tiers. There were the schools and then there were the prisons. So if it was a more serious religious offense, they would be gone. But even those schools, we heard some first-hand stories from police who worked in there, and it's not a school. It's not a nice thing. It was really, really terrible.
Now, initially, I wanted to frame this as a cultural genocide, and then you corrected me in saying that no, even the government of Canada has recognized that this is just a genocide, and so that's a heavy word, and we don't throw that about lightly. It just is. It is the reality of what is going on, and it's not an easy thing to talk about, but it is again a representation of what's occurring. And so you're here, and you've now invested years of your life into learning the language and reaching out to the Uyghur people, and now you see them go through this. How did the genocide of the Uyghurs affect you personally?
I think usually I don't want to answer that question about how it affects us personally. I first just want to say what we saw, a little bit more what we saw it affecting them, just seeing the people in so much fear. They were used to police their own people. They were used to monitor and live in their own people's homes, and just, you know, the facial scanning, the constant stress. I kept track of, and I have a 6-page document of all the things that gradually increased over those 2 years. But watching how it affected our friends was incredible. And so what it affects us is just very, very minuscule. But I know in this context we're talking about how we heal, and as ministers walking alongside people that are struggling, that is a real thing. So yeah, it affected us too.
Yeah, our brains kind of slowed down, and our ministry became more simple. It wasn't theological discussions about who God is or what God is doing for us with our friends. And Andrea had a lot of girlfriends that she connected with in the tea, like little tea gatherings and such. But it just became, when we were sitting with a family in our house, a weaker family, we would just say, God is here. And, just kind of sat there in that moment, and we just had to remind ourselves and our friends that God does see this. God is here even in this great evil. And that was the message. That's basically what it boiled down to, because the brain's just, when you're in trauma, you can't process a lot, and it becomes much simpler, which is okay.
And you could see on their face, they're almost scared that you said the word. They can't say the word God anymore.
Allah.
But they were like relieved to hear that from us. And it also just became like looking in people's eyes and like, I see you. And at the end, our friends were like, just remember me. If you bring the memory of me out of this place, then I exist in some way.
Yeah, and our prayers became simple too.
Yeah.
Just like, this isn't right. That was my daily prayer as I walked around, or as I drove through these checkpoints, did my business, this isn't right.
And we had to regularly check in with each other. Are we seeing what we're seeing? Are we crazy? You start to feel crazy because you just can't believe you're seeing this.
It defies belief.
It defies belief every day. It's like the Holocaust plus the Cultural Revolution plus the residential schools plus now we find out it's slavery. All those schools have been turned into cotton factories. So 80% of cotton from Asia is coming from this place. So it's just every ugly system wrapped into one. And to be witnessing that and then not have people know about it was really, really hard. It helped. It put a pressure on us. But yeah, we started to go foggy. Reading slowed down. Even I found like my ability to believe or pray, and I slowed down. But I was like, I couldn't even go through all of Psalm 23 anymore. That says something. But the Lord is my shepherd, and just held on to that.
Well, and that simple faith, those simple truths, like it just shows what we need, what we require, and how God is that. I know, just for me, hearing your story gives a dose of perspective as well of what lack of freedom really looks like, and just it's hard to believe that happens, or is happening even now, even as we sit here. So eventually that wasn't your reality. You were called to leave, and you came back to Canada, and so you took a lot of this with you, and so we do want to ask a little bit about your healing. In what ways were you able to heal upon coming back to Canada?
Well, I think part of our process was really taking time and leaving on our own terms. We had seen one couple we knew, they were told in the afternoon they needed to leave the country by midnight, and that's not something we wanted to do with our children. So we made that decision to leave before it was going to be forced on us. And so we took time to ship things. The postal service was an amazing process. We could only get 3 boxes done in a morning and 2 officials looking at every page and every board game piece. And when we were all done shipping our 30 boxes, I said to Gary, what are we going to do when we're done this? Like, that was our date in the week. And he's like, we're going to be able to do other things than this in Canada. I sort of forget where you've been going. But when we got back here, we took time to take a trip and really help our kids process.
Yeah, and we just, and while we were still there, actually, we made sure we took our kids around, kind of visited the favorite spots we had been there, and kind of said goodbye. There's you find these little, there's only half an inch of rain in that area annually, so it was very dry, but made very good for compost business. Compost made a dramatic difference. It was awesome. Farmers loved it. But anyways, we'd find these little crevices of green. You know, all of a sudden there would be a river or something off the mountain valley, and we'd go and have picnics there, and it was just a special time. So we went to those places, and even in one of those places, we had some Bibles and other material left, Uyghur stuff, and we had to get rid of it. We actually had friends in the capital who they got caught with it because they were putting it in the garbage can, and surveillance cameras are everywhere, and they had to leave, the next day. But we're going to just put it in these crevices, in the side of the mountain, and someday someone will find them. Andrea even had a couple of reading glasses because
Uyghur print is so small they can't read it, so I put some reading glasses there with it.
In those crevices.
Little memory.
And then I just was asking God, what is your perspective? This is really hard, obviously. This great evil we have seen during our time here when we're trying to be light. And what we need to hear from you, Lord. And so one of the pictures he gave us was this picture from Gordon Neufeld, actually, that in France, Provence, France, they have a tradition of when they are going to bed, the parents, maybe with the kids, they set up the table for breakfast for the next day. And so they're setting the table because, yes, the darkness is coming and the light is gone, but there will be a dawn. There will be, another day. And so God just was telling us that you have set the table here, your time is finished, but morning will come again. So that was very encouraging as we left.
Yeah.
That helped our to leave well. And then we took a sabbatical when we came to Canada. It's just like, we need to stop. I mean, we're kind of slow already and such, but just need to rest. Haley Reimer, if anyone knows, she used to be a teacher here from our church. She had a house out in PEI. We stayed there for over a month. It was fabulous.
Just sat and cried and looked at the ocean. We went to a counselor and she said, you're going to need to cry for your whole sabbatical. So that's pretty much what we did.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I love that. I love that message of hope, that morning will come again. And that darkness takes many different forms. And I know your story is very unique. Our stories are different yet too, and yet that message of hope is the same. So no matter what the cause of that darkness, no matter the length or the depth of that darkness, that promises that morning will come again, and that's found in Christ alone, right? And that morning is unstoppable, right? Not even a systematic genocide of a people will stop morning from coming again. And so the hope is there that those that you have left out of necessity, that have placed their trust in Christ, will still have that hope of morning as well. Is there anything else you'd like to leave with us, any bit of encouragement or any other part of your story that you wanted to share?
One piece, I just want to say that I'm very thankful for Anabaptist theology, that within our belief of the sovereignty of God, we don't believe that everything that happens on this world is in his control, or that every single thing was destined to happen from God's will. And I needed that. If I had thought that the hellishness I was seeing was part of his plan for these people, I don't think I would have been able to hold on to my faith.
Yeah, Walter Wink, that was the greatest source of kind of thinking about through this theologically. The Powers That Be, he has a series books and just really helpful to understand what this evil that we were dealing with, that there's a human element aligning with the systems, God-given systems, government and other things, but aligning and then being with the spiritual realm, the evil forces, all aligning. So that those three things, that was very helpful to look at that. And but we're happy to be back here, and nature is always a good thing too. That's been also very helpful, enjoying the nature around us.
Yep. And so God has called you back to Canada, but He's still called you. Right? And so your work and your ministry look a little bit different now. But just could you share for us now that it's been 4 years and there's some time to get your bearings and some time to have your sabbatical, what vision has God given for your future, you and your family?
Yeah, we always enjoy wherever we are to be in the middle of community. So with the compost business, I had, it was wonderful. I got to interact. I handed out 6,000 brochures to farmers personally in those 5 years, and it was just awesome. Lots of good conversations, because that's 80% of the Uyghurs are farmers, so that was cool. So yeah, when we came back, we just love to be in the middle of the community wherever we are. So I got a job in Steinbeck as the executive director of the Mennonite Heritage Village. And so that's right in the middle of this culture here, and even a little village too. So that's been very precious, very good for me, and I love it because it's a faith-based story that we are telling there at the museum, but it's also interacting with government officials again. It's interacting with visitors from around the world and in the community around us, and it's just a great place that just lends itself to good spiritual discussions with people that come, and so it's been very enjoyable that way.
Now, I should mention, my 3-year-old son loves going to the Heritage Village, but he just calls it the Hair Village. It's too many syllables, so I don't know if you want to, you can take that for what it is, maybe new branding slogan, I'm not sure, but it's the Hair Village to him, yeah. What about yourself, Andrea?
Yeah, I think I was very grateful for the resourcing I had to know how to support my children in a difficult place and still thrive and hold on to them. And then to come back and to, I've just done a master's in counseling psychology, and I've been continuing to work in ministry, working with families online, so I'm still interacting and doing coursework and just looking for ways to help serve and bring resilience and hope into people's lives.
Oh, that's good. Well, I can't thank you enough for being willing to share a story that is as heavy as that, and not just the events that gone on, but your own journey through it. And so why don't you guys just show your appreciation for Gary and Andrea, and they're willing to share. You know what? I just want to acknowledge that a show like this takes just a ton of work. And so I want to thank Gary and Andrea, Sid and Lucas for being willing to come again and share and kickstart these conversations we're going to have all weekend long. I want to thank the band that came and rehearsed yesterday and put in the time. So Braden, Sophia, and Marv, thank you very much. I want to thank my creative writing team because I'm not normally that funny at all. I had a lot of help. So Andrew Unger helped me out. He's the author of The Daily Bonnet, and so there were some good Mennonite jokes in there, courtesy of him. And good friends Tim and Heather Duick, who are just funny and haven't published anything yet, so they should probably get along and do that soon. I want to thank Andrew Walker for putting together the Questionable Questions video, and Dean Poirier, Mark Carr, and Becky Roman for doing the tech and the stagehand backstage stuff. Just a lot of hours went into this as well. Thank you to the EMC office and Steinbeck Christian School for being hosts. So that's it for the Not So Late show. I want to just thank you for joining us. I encourage you to come back tomorrow for all the fun and exciting events that you saw advertised here tonight. So have a good night and have a great weekend.